What is it that tells us when we're communicating that we're actually being understood? And how do we know when we're listening whether what we're hearing is what was meant? We never really know for sure, do we? There aren't any guarantees when it comes to communication, even though we're always hoping for them. And we try and we try and relentlessly we try. I had an experience that brought this to mind a couple of weeks ago. I was home alone for a few days, and one of the afternoons I was in the office peacefully working when, tickling on the edge of my consciousness, I began to hear a scrabbly, scrappy kind of sound, and I couldn't identify it. It just didn't make sense, and it just didn't fit. Something was off. And I tried to ignore it, but it just kept coming back, and so eventually I went to see, what is that sound? And the first thing I did was check to see if our dog Lulu was behaving herself, and she was actually fast asleep on the couch, so it had nothing to do with her, and all seemed peaceful and well. But then there was that sound again. So I kept looking, and eventually I found it. Behind the big chair near the window, close to the floor on the windowsill, was a small bird. And my first reaction was, there's a bird in the house. How fun. I love that there's a bird in the house. And then my second reaction was, I have to help that bird leave, because I imagined that she wasn't very happy being in the house, and it was actually pretty clear that she wasn't. So I grabbed a stick and I nudged it to her feet, and she latched on to the perch, which seemed to be a very natural gesture for her. And then I slowly and very carefully began to lift the stick, and she hopped off. So I tried again. I very slowly and carefully lifted the stick. She hopped off again, and I tried a number of times, and each time the result was the same. No matter how careful I was, or how gentle, or how slow, she hopped off the stick. It just wasn't working for her. So I decided to give her some space, and I left the room for a while. But when I came back, nothing much had changed. It was clear that she had flown around the room a little, and in fact, we had a little bit of that together. But then she ended up right back in her original spot. So I tried again, of course, being me, but it failed. So eventually I texted my husband, and he gave me the golden solution, and it worked on the first try. I found a small towel, and I draped it over her, and very gingerly picked up the package of bird and towel and carried it out to the door and lifted the corner, and off she flew. My bird was gone, and I missed my bird, but it was the right thing to do, and I knew that. And thinking about this later, I realized it was a perfect little parable for trust and relationships. How do we get to know each other? And how do we find the right, perfect language in order to converse? And sometimes that's kind of tough, and sometimes we have a hard time matching. And in this case, what I realized is that I was coming at this bird with my idea of what would work. My solution, my language, hitting her over the head with my way. And what ended up working was something entirely different. And I had thought, oh, I'm so smart, I know exactly what to do, because I was so encouraged by her latching onto the stick, but it wasn't enough. So it makes me realize, and it's quite a little lesson that's useful, about how we talk to each other and how we listen. And that absolutely carries into marketing. If we bludgeon people over the head with our idea of what we can do for them, chances are it's going to fall short. And chances are we're going to keep trying over and over again until we realize we've failed. So I had a bird in the house, and that bird was a great teacher for me. And hopefully it's a lesson that I'll remember. We'll see.